What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astrodfs bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I'm going over Week 6's Thursday Night Showdown between the Commanders and the Bears. Before I get into it, if you guys do find this video helpful by the end, just please leave a like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. But if you haven't been here before, what I'm going to do is break down the matchup. I have both DraftKings and Fanduel on the screen. And this is basically where I like to compare, contrast, find some price differences and some opportunities on both sites. On FanDuel, there's a lot that you could do with tonight. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the top line is. I know a lot of people think that this game is going to be a low-scoring, just ball can't move and all that, and in my opinion, it's the offenses are capable of scoring points. The defenses are just very lackluster, very inconsistent, have a lot of holes on both defenses. The over-under's at 38.5, and I like the over. I think it's very doable in a game like tonight. So let's get into it. We're just going to check prices first and then get into the matchup. Like I said, I'm on both DraftKings and FanDuel, so if you play on one or the other or both, maybe you find an opportunity on a site that you like on FanDuel that DraftKings doesn't offer. You see something on DraftKings that FanDuel doesn't offer. The huge difference is you get 60,000 on FanDuel, but only 5 players on DraftKings. You get 50,000 with 6, and you pay up for a captain. But there's some really cheap options that you could do. On the Washington side, just breaking this down really quick. Just go over the top 4 players. I always like to do it. There's only 3 above 10K, which means there's a lot of mid-tier players and a lot of low-tier players. Usually you get about 4 or more above 10K. This week we just have 3. We have 2 quarterbacks, Montgomery. That's it. On FanDuel, the really expensive Montgomery, Fields, Wentz. So same thing on both sites, pretty much. So let's get into the Washington side and just going over what we're looking at tonight. So obviously Carson Wentz, a quarterback. You get Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel as 2 wide receivers, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, and J.D. McKissick. You get a running back room where you don't know what's going on right now. You look at Brian Robinson, he had the most carries last week, 9 for 22. You look at Gibson last week, 3 of 6, but he gets some targets. And then you look at J.D. McKissick also getting targets. So if you had to ask me, Brian Robinson is probably going to take over this running back room shortly. I don't think it's his to take right now. I think they want to progress him in and, not overwork his body for what he's done to get back. But I do think that he gets the goal line work. If a fumble happens with Gibson again, I think Brian Robinson then takes over. The only injury news that we're waiting on is Diami Brown. Dotson was already ruled out. Logan Thomas was already ruled out. If Diami Brown is out for the Commanders, you get a 1,400 Cam Sims. He's the guy that's, unless something else happens, is going to take over that third wide receiver spot. 1,400 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, we go all the way down, and you get a basically bottom tier price Cam Sims at 5,500 on FanDuel. So value on both sides there for Cam Sims. Just have to watch the injury news, see if Diami Brown is out. If he's out, Cam Sims then becomes someone you can play as a very cheap play. And then the other is John Bates. At 3K, it's not the most valuable thing, but you look at his usage so far this year, and he's got a decent amount of targets, not a lot of yards, no touchdowns, anything like that. But with Logan Thomas being out, and I mean, look at Logan Thomas's numbers. I mean, it's nothing that screams like, oh man, this is a must-have tight end, like I have to start him, anything like that. But you look, and he has 3 games with 5+ targets, and then you look at John Bates. They played games together, getting targets too, which means they include the tight end. They've included John Bates, which means he has opportunity, and it is a value play tonight for me. Now we go to the Chicago side, and the Bears side is where all the opportunity comes. You pretty much know what you're getting out of Washington except the running back room. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they go back to Gibson. Maybe they wanted to see what they'd get out of Brian Robinson. Maybe they go back to Antonio Gibson. Brian Robinson only 9 of 22, under 3 yards per carry. It's not like he had a great game by any means, and I'm not discrediting what he's doing by any means. I'm just pointing out that maybe they used him in the sense of trying to see what his body is capable of doing. Maybe they go back to Antonio Gibson. We'll see. But the Bears situation is where tons of opportunity come because they run a lot of different formations and include a lot of personnel. There's no injury news at all for the Bears. Offensively, none. Justin Fields, quarterback. David Montgomery back at the running back. You look at him last week, 12 for 20. Gets his 4 receptions, 62 yards, got that 30-yard reception. You look at Khalil Herbert, only down to 4 carries last week. Not very valuable, especially for a $6,200 price tag. If you're going to play running back on the Bears, you go Montgomery. The only way that Montgomery doesn't get points tonight is if he gets hurt. I think it's a good game script for him. I just don't know with that price tag if I want to pay up for that necessarily right now with his injury history. And then we go to the wide receivers, and yet this is where I say there's a lot of opportunities on the Bears side versus a Washington side. So Darnell Mooney, obviously wide receiver 1. You go down, St. Brown is wide receiver 2. He's going to be on the field a lot. And then you start going down to everybody else on the Bears roster. Velus Jones gets that touchdown, 2,600, gets 7.9 fantasy points last week. Dante Pettis is going to be in there. Still low amount of targets. Only had that the game against San Fran. That's really been it for fantasy for him. Smith Marset, which a lot of Bears fans are hating right now. But this is where an opportunity comes. I'm interested to see if N'Keal Harry is going to be active and playing in tonight's game. I'd watch news. I'd look and see as the game gets closer if he's going to be active and playing. Because you got to remember, the Bears have Mooney, St. Brown, Velus, Pettis, Smith Marset. Harry should be able to play, but I'd still watch it. I wouldn't be 100% certain. He's just coming off the IR. If he is, there is a good chance at 200 you're going to want to get him in some lineups. The ultimate value. A value that you love to play. And then you get Blasingame, their fullback, which they really haven't used at all. Like, at all. But this is a game where you use him. This is a game that's winnable for the Bears. The Commanders aren't anything special. The Bears organization wants to win games. They don't care how they win. This is a game where I could see a sneaky Blasingame get some points. Ebner, I'd say, would be valuable, but both the running backs would have to get hurt, or one for Ebner to get in there. And then Ryan Griffin. Ryan Griffin, same thing. Isn't somebody that screams points or anything like that, but for $1,000 price tag, he gets snaps. He's gonna be on the field and might be in blocking roles for the most part. But you have to understand, the Bears organization right now they want to win. They're not meant to win, but they want to win. So they're going to do whatever they can tonight. They're going to get very creative against a Washington team that they could beat and use some of these guys. It's one of those game scripts. So that's on DraftKings, and I apologize for not going back to Fanduel and looking at these prices, but I'll do that. So we went over some of the Fanduel prices. John Bates down here. Cam Sims, John Bates, both 5,500 for the Washington Commanders. John Bates is a very valuable play tonight, going against Roquan, who's allowed a lot of points to tight ends so far this year. Up and down, mostly up. Had a couple lower, but it's tight ends do fairly well against Chicago so far this year. And then we go back to the rest of the Chicago side, and we look. Dante Pettis down here at 6K, Ryan Griffin at 6K, Velus at 65, St. Brown at 7, Cole Kmet at 75. Cole Kmet's on FanDuel, it's the same thing as George Kittle I mentioned. He's just too cheap for me to play, or not to play, in target. 7,500 for the tight end one against the Commanders. That's something I love. If you go in, I believe we will be able to find him here somewhere. N'Keal Harry down there at 5K. Value. There's a lot of value on the Chicago side. On Fanduel, there's a lot of value. Like, Fanduel is going to be very interesting to see of how this pans out. But there's a lot of opportunities everywhere. So to go over, and this is just me putting stuff in there. So obviously I want to have Justin Fields tonight. Mobile quarterback gets his points. I want to have Carson Wentz tonight. The reason I want to have Carson Wentz, you look at his fumbles and his turnovers, 6 interceptions, 6 fumbles. He's only lost 1. Only lost 1 fumble, but he has 6. So in total, he's got 7 turnovers in 5 games. This is a Bears defense where they're going to give up passing. Jalen Johnson should be back tonight. If the Commanders are down, Carson Wentz is a quarterback that always has a comeback. He never goes down without fighting. It might not be the best fighting, but he goes down fighting. I want to have Carson Wentz. I want to have Curtis Samuel tonight. Curtis Samuel is another name that I want to have. The Bears secondary is very lackluster when Jalen Johnson's out. That secondary is very, very, very bad. He'll be going against Kyler Gordon for the most part. Kyler Gordon, rookie corner for the Bears. I have really high hopes for. I know it's just going to be a struggle this season because rookie corners get targeted a lot. And that's just to see if they're going to be good. Teams want to use their rookie corners because they want them to develop. But teams like to expose that, and the Commanders are someone like Carson Wentz. So I have the 2 top quarterbacks. I have Curtis Samuel. Let's throw some other names in there. I don't think defenses, like, if you're playing 150, by all means, you need to have defenses in. This can honestly be a shit show, like I mentioned. I don't think it is, but it could be. The way the NFL is played right now, offenses are not playing very well. Defenses are playing good, but they look even better with how bad offenses are. So then I want to try to get somebody like John Bates in there. 3K I think is a value. We got 18 to figure out what else we could do. So let's say we put Montgomery in there and we get 7,800. And let's say Cole Kmet. Now, by all means, this is not a lineup to where I'm like, oh man, this is great. But let's go over what I have targeted. I have Justin Fields, a mobile quarterback. David Montgomery, the running back that's going to get the volume for the Bears. I don't have any of the Washington running backs because that running back room is crazy. If you're playing 150 lines, then yes, you want to have running backs on the Washington side. You want to have exposure to all 3, in my opinion. But if you're playing a few lineups, it's very risky to play a Washington running back because if one of them doesn't produce, look at the prices. If one of them doesn't produce, you're paying 86 for Gibson. You're paying 66 for Robinson and 64 for McKissick. On FanDuel, you're paying $11,000 for Robinson. We go down Gibson, a good discount on FanDuel at $9,000, and then McKissick is $75,000. Totally different on FanDuel. But you only get 5 roster spots. If your running back doesn't produce, you're probably not going to cash out in these tournaments. If you play cash, like the double ups and stuff like that, it's not looking pretty. So I'm going to try to avoid a Washington running back if you're playing a few lineups. Because if you max out lineups, if you play a lot of lineups, have exposure to the running backs. Have exposure to the kickers. Have exposure to the defenses. Because, I mentioned, could easily be a shit show. We do not have Darnell Mooney in this lineup. The Bears' number 1 receiver going against a really shaky Washington secondary. We have Cole Kmet going as a target. Like I said, this is not something I love. It literally fits in the salary somehow. And then we get the tight end for Washington just because he's a value. And I'll do a FanDuel one as well. So I'll go Justin Fields as captain. I'll put Carson Wentz in there. We'll go find some value. I'm going to put I'll put John Bates. I'll put John Bates in this. I won't do Cole Kmet just because he's so valuable. But I do like his price. I'm going to put Darnell Mooney because he's very cheap. And then I'm going to put Curtis Samuel. That one's not bad. For a 5-player, stay at salary, these aren't bad. They're necessarily not the greatest, but It literally fits both salaries, which is crazy, and there's players that I like. So, if you guys are interested in joining us where we have our plays, we have bets, we have props. We do the NHL season started, giving out free NHL plays if you guys subscribe to our NFL package or our NBA package that's coming out. If you guys subscribe to either one of that, you get the NHL package. I have plays, I have bets, stuff like that. If you guys have any questions about the slates and you guys are subscribed, we easily answer that for you guys as well. So if you guys are interested in any of that, just click the link in the description down below. It's an invite to our Discord, and it explains everything that you have to do from there. If you did enjoy the video, like I stated in the beginning, leave a like, subscribe. That helps me out a lot. I like seeing progress. I like knowing if I'm doing good or bad, so that definitely helps me out. Anyway, guys, I will see you in the next one.